Finance for development, now a central theme at this year's UN General Assembly in the context of lagging implementation on the Sustainable Development Goals and a 2030 deadline that requires richer countries, international financial institutions and the private sector to do more to meet the moment.
The
SDG financing gap has become a chasm, estimated at $3.9 trillion a year. Developing countries face borrowing costs up to 8 times higher than developed countries, a debt trap. And 1 in 3 countries around the world is now at high risk of a fiscal crisis. Over 40% of people living in extreme poverty are in countries with severe debt challenges. There have been some good faith efforts to help developing economies survive this financing crisis, including the G20 Debt Service Suspension Initiative and the distribution of special drawing rights by the International Monetary Fund. But they are not enough.
Humanity is currently confronted with
Ramaphosa warned that this was the time when solidarity was needed most, pressing developed nations to meet their own agreed commitments, including capacitating the annual $100 billion Green Climate Fund to spur adaptation and mitigation within developing countries.
Sustainable and inclusive growth requires that we must do much more. We must strengthen and reform the international financial architecture. Developing economy countries must participate equally as well as meaningfully in the decision-making process of international economic order. The mandates of multilateral development banks must be reframed to respond to the needs of developing economies. We must assert the principle of country ownership. Multilateral development banks must support projects and programs that are aligned to the development priorities and climate commitments of developing economy countries.
He called on developed economies to meet the 0.7% of their gross national income towards official development assistance, but also addressed the need for greater systemic change.
The international tax system must also reflect the diverse needs and capacities of both developed as well as developing country economies. More innovation is required to enable the private sector to play a great role in addressing the finance gap. This includes a new approach to blended finance with a focus on the developmental impact of investments that are effected around the world. Credit ratings of developing countries and the African economies in particular need to be based on the economic fundamentals and not on subjective assessments.
With a key message of intent from, among others, the leadership of the World Bank.
The Global South's frustration is understandable. In many ways, they are paying the price for the prosperity of others. But the truth is, we cannot endure another period of emission-intensive growth. We have to find a way to finance a different world, one where climate is resilient, pandemics are managed, food is abundant, and poverty is defeated. The remarkable declaration that emerged from the recent G20 leaders meeting in New Delhi very clearly acknowledges this truth. It puts the World Bank at the center of the search for solutions. I feel that pressure and responsibility every day. It is one that the team at the World Bank is not taking lightly.
The SG's push for an annual SDG stimulus of $500 billion annually to provide affordable long-term financing for investments in sustainable development and climate action also appearing to gain traction here. Chauvin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.